Hey there, and thanks so much for joining me for another tutorial. My name is Erin Eno, and today I'm going to show you how to do this painting and then turn it into these pretty bookmarks. I want to send a special shout out to Polly Hill over at Instagram. As I was painting this, I realized that it was her artwork that I really admire that was clearly inspiring me as I created this painting. So I just want to send out a thanks to her. If you don't know of her, I will put her Instagram handle in the description box below. But thanks again, Polly, and let's get on with the tutorial. As I always do, I'll just run through my materials that I'm going to be using. Today I'm going to be using my Baohong Academy watercolor paper. It's 140 pound, 100% cotton. I have my Van Gogh paints. I have a jar of water and a paper towel. And for brushes today, I've grabbed my Princeton Snap in a 1-inch wash in a size 12 round and a size 4 round. And I also have my Curry's store brand size 10 round. I'll try to leave which series this is in the information box below. I'll try to remember to do that for you. You will also need a ruler to cut your bookmarks out. And I'm not sure, but I may be using my Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. If you don't have this, you can use white gouache or white I'm not sure if white acrylic would really work. I think it should, but gouache would be best if you don't have this. And I may also be using my metallic paints. I've got a Starry Colors palette. I will put a link to this in the description box as well. I also have my heat tool handy just to speed things up. You don't have to have that. If you don't have one, don't worry about it. You just need to possibly wait between layers if that's what I get into. I'm just kind of winging this. I don't know what I'm going to get into quite yet, but I did want to point out that I'm going to be leaving my paper on the block. The Baohong Academy papers come as a block, which means, if you don't know, means they're glued all on all 4 sides. So that way you can saturate this with a lot of water, and when it dries it's not going to buckle on you. So if you don't have a block like this, you can just tape your paper on all 4 corners. I just save the backs of my pads, and that's what I use to tape my paper down to. I'm using this for a couple reasons. One is because I want my bookmarks to be borderless, so I'll just be able to cut the bookmarks out, and secondly, it's a brand new pad and I just thought it was fun because I like new art supplies. Anyway, enough of that. Like I say, if you're not using a block, just tape your paper down to a board on all 4 sides. And you can even tape between your bookmarks if you want a white border all around your bookmark, or just trim off the border at the end. I hope that makes sense. So let's just jump in because I don't really know what I'm going to do here. It's just kind of winging it, and I just thought I've always wanted to do some bookmarks, and I got a book for Christmas so I could use a bookmark. And bookmarks are very forgiving. We can play around with different techniques, different colors. You don't have to worry about composition so much, like whether it's balanced or not, because you are going to be cutting out strips, so they'll be small. So it just takes some of the anxiety out of painting, and you can just kind of paint carefree and just kind of go crazy and just relax and get right into it. So to start off, I'm just going to wet my entire paper. Not dripping wet, but just make sure it's all good and covered. I'm going to tilt it just so I can make sure it's all wet, and I can see that it's not yet. I don't know what I'm going to do here. I think I'm going to start off with a little bit of Payne's gray, and I'm still going to be working with my wash brush. Okay, and I'm just going to start in the middle. Then I'm going to turn my paper upside down and kind of just work this down to fade it out, because I want it darker at the bottom than I do at the top. And I think I will go in with this kind of turquoisey green mixture that I have here. It's primarily Viridian. There may be some other stuff mixed in here. I honestly don't remember. But I think I will actually just put in a little bit of indigo, just to make it a little more on the blue side. And I'm going to put this at the very bottom. Make sure I get it covered evenly. And then I'm also going to take that and turn my paper upside down and just bring this down. You could even just like wet this and tip it up and let it just kind of drip down and just let it do whatever it does. Like that. Just going to add a little bit more just to make it a little bit deeper. And like I say, you don't have to worry about it being the same on the left side or the same as it is, the same on the left side as it is on the right, because these are bookmarks and they're going to be cut out individually. That's the beauty of this. So I'm going to go in with a little bit more. Then I'm going to go into the Payne's Gray again and just have these kind of blend together. Just like that. So I think what I'll do is put the wash brush away, and I want to bring in, I think, some browns and kind of goldy colors. So I'm going to go in to my sepia here, which is very dark brown. And I'm just going to take most of the water off my, actually, you know what? Sorry, I grabbed the size 10 round. I want to use the size 12. Need something a little bigger. So I'm just going to wet my brush, take off some of the water and go into that sepia and just start putting it in wherever and just let it kind of blend out. Do whatever it's going to do. And like I say, the beauty of doing bookmarks is that I don't need to worry about composition, whether it's balanced. The only thing I do need to consider is that these are going to be cut into strips later. So you kind of have to, like if you're going to do flowers, which I'm going to, you have to make sure they're reasonably small so that each bookmark gets a share of flowers. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, so that's that, and I'll let that kind of bleed out, and we can just start throwing colors in. I think what I will do is maybe get some yellow ochre as well, and get some yellow in here. Whoops. Just like that. And maybe go in and get some black and tap some of that in. And I'm just tapping it. I'm just letting it do whatever it wants to do. Just kind of playing around. And I think what I also will do while it's still wet is I'm going to take some water and just tap it in some areas to get some blooms. And where I put the water, it's going to push the pigment away, and that is where I can add some flowers and the color won't get distorted from the color underneath. And I'm going to go back into that Viridian, a bit of that turquoise. Well, that was, or indigo. That was a lot of indigo. I did not mean to do that. But I don't know. You know what? Who knows? Maybe it's a happy accident. I'm going to put it in just as it is, because I'm okay with that. I'll wet that a bit. So you're really just doing whatever. There's no right or wrong here. In fact, I think I'm going to tip it upside down and just get a lot of that pigment off my brush and start letting that blue kind of flow down, I think, and see what that looks like. So even though it's flowers, it's just like so abstract, I don't even know what I'm going to end up with, which is the fun of it. And if you get it running down too much, just, sorry, I'll probably out of the view of the camera. If you get it running down too much, you can just dry off your brush and pick some of that water up so it doesn't continue to flow down. Just blend that out a bit. And then while it's still wet, while those blooms are still wet, see, I'm just working kind of fast because I'm just starting off with totally wet here. But I really am at the mercy of the paints and just letting them do whatever. So I'm going to take my number 10 round. Just trying to think of what color I want to throw in here. I think maybe some blue. Yeah, let's stick with the blue. So I'm going to go with the indigo when I over indigoed that palette there. And I'm just going to get some of the pigment off my brush, and I'm just going to go and kind of do some little shapes that are going to kind of blend out and be light, but they're going to indicate where I'm going to put some of my flowers, and maybe they'll end up just looking like light flowers in the background. So that would work too. It really doesn't matter, because I don't know what I'm going to end up with. I just thought this would be fun, kind of a de-stressor after, you know, the holiday rush and all the running around you do. It's just kind of fun to do something that's just totally abstract. Getting a little bit of a hard edge there I'm not big on, so I'm just going to kind of blend this out just with some water. It's just where those blooms go. When you do that, it pushes the pigment away and you do get kind of a spidery hard edge, so that's what that is, but it's all good. I'm going to go back into the sepia and add a little bit more. I think with this size I measured, I'm probably going to get like 8 bookmarks out of this. which is a decent amount. I think I will use my metallic palette. What color I'm going to use, I'm not sure. I've never used the metallic wet in wet before. So I'm going to bring up a fresh jar of water. That's going to be for my paints, and I'll use this dirty water for my metallics. And I think I will use this, because I've used the sepia and it's a dark brown, I think I'm going to use this kind of coppery color. So I'll just wet that up. Like I say, I've never used this wet in wet before. And I may even put some on when it's dry at the very end, but I kind of want to see what it looks like when you do it wet in wet. Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Oh, I think I'll be using this again. And the thing is, the metallic colors are great for things like bookmarks, because you get to hold those in your hand. It's like if you're using the metallics in a painting, it looks pretty, but then you go and you put it behind a frame and you never really see the light reflecting off the metallic part. You never get that effect. You know what I'm trying to say. I think you know what I'm trying to say. So that's kind of cool. I like that. And I think also what I'll do is get some of it on my brush. That's pretty wet. That's okay. And I'm just going to tap it. It's going to go all over the place. I'm going to get metallic paint everywhere. It's going to water, it's going to disperse because it's pretty watery. I will put some on at the very end, I think, too, once it's dry, because I do like the metallic gold or coppery color. So that's kind of neat. Now I will let this dry. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to just kind of go crazy and use my white as well. So I think I want to splatter that as well. So I'm going to clean off this brush. I'm going to use the same water jar for the white as I did for the metallic. I just don't want to contaminate my paints, like my watercolor paints, not my whites. So I'm going to get a little bit of that just in the lid, and I'm going to water it down a bit. And I'm going to splatter some white on there, and I may put some more on at the end as well when it's dry. Who knows? So I'll just tap this a bit, see what this does. I'm going to make it a little bit looser by adding a little more water. I'm getting paint everywhere. Oh well, I'll be cleaning the floor tomorrow. Now you can see I didn't get a lot here, but I'm not concerned about it. Like I say, I'm not concerned about it being even all the way across, because each bookmark is going to be different. And that's the beauty of it. It's very forgiving. So I think what I'm going to do, I keep saying gonna. What I'm going to do is take my heat tool and just kind of speed up the drying process here. If you have a hairdryer, you can use that too. Just be very careful if it's really wet, because if you have a hairdryer that's got a lot of force, you're just going to blow your paints around. So that's why I like the heat tool. So it is dry enough to go in and start putting some flowers in. So we've got these kind of faded flowerish things in the background. So now I'm going to go in and just put in some more deliberate flowers, and I'm going to use that indigo not too strong, just dip it into my water a couple times just to fade it out a bit. Okay, and we're just going to put in some flower shapes, just very abstract, and they can go anywhere, and I'm not concerned about going over the gold because I'm going to add more gold again at the end. We can just do whatever. I'm gonna lighten up that indigo. I'll put a bit of that viridian in there. God, the indigo is so powerful. I keep forgetting that. It really, really is highly pigmented, which is partly why I like it so much. But I'll tone it down a little bit. And I'm just going to put these kind of rough flower petal shapes in anywhere and everywhere, really. So I'm just going to continue this and I'll speed it up because you guys don't need to see me doing this from now till whenever. And I think I want to soften some of the edges of some of them. So I'm just going to go in with a damp brush and just drag it along the outer edge in some areas just to soften up the flowers a little bit and have them kind of a little more organic. And you can just keep doing this, keep layering and building till you get the look you want. It's just fun. You're just playing around. That's why I like abstracts. Very relaxing. Okay, now I'm going to go in with straight indigo and just start tapping that in some places. Okay, so I think I'm going to just take my heat tool, and because there's a lot of water on there, I'm going to put it on low. I'm going to put a link to this heat tool in the description box because I got it because it was one of the less expensive ones, and it does have 2 speeds, and it seems to be working out pretty well. So I'll link that in the description box for you. Okay, it's not completely dry, but it's dry enough that I'm okay going in now with my number 4 and just plain black, just straight black. I'm actually just going to turn my palette, make this a little more convenient. So I'm just using straight black, and it's not a lot of water. Okay, and I'm going to turn my paper now because I want to put stems on all these flowers. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to turn my paper. I just want to see where the stems are going to go. So, and I'm just kind of doing quick, fast strokes for the stems because I don't need to make them like so precise that they start somewhere and end somewhere. They can kind of end and be buried in all the stuff that's going on down here. So just like that. Actually, I think what I will do is turn my paper. And then I'm going to rinse off my brush. And I'm going to go back to the indigo and just put in some edges just to get some accents on some of these where the indigo's faded. Just like that. This is weird when I turn my palette. It's not the way I normally have it, and it's just too weird to work that way. I wouldn't have thought. Now I know. So I'm just going to put it in some areas on each flower. Just like that. Quickly. I'm working quickly because I don't want it to, I mean, it can dry, but I don't want it to dry too much because I'm going to go in with just water on my brush and kind of smooth this indigo out. Not smooth it out, fade it out a bit. Blend it out. That's the word I'm looking for. Blend it out. So now I'm going to wet my brush and I'm just going to kind of squiggle around some of that indigo. So I'm just cleaning my brush off, just blending it out, but I'm not being fussy about it because it is abstract after all. There we go. I'm going to go back to my number 12 and go back into my sepia. And I'm just going to put in some more, bring that darkness back in because we've lost some of it. The gold has spread out quite a bit. I don't want to cover all the gold, but I'm just going to see what this does. I'm going to go right to the bottom. So I'm going to clean my brush off and I'm going to tip my paper again. Careful, I don't want to smudge any of those flowers. So with just a little bit of water on my brush, I'm just going to start hitting that sepia and just kind of let it drift down the paper a bit. We can even go back into that Viridian green with a bit of that sepia or a bit of the indigo in it, and even start tapping some of that back in. It kind of seems counterintuitive because I'm covering up what I did, but it's just, I just want to see the effects of all the layers. You get to play when you're doing abstract. That's what makes it so fun. So I just want to soften this out a bit so it's not so harsh. And just have it travel down the page on its own. And I can tap in some more of the yellow ochre even. And I think that's going to be it for that. So I'm going to let this dry And then I'm going to splatter it a little bit more. Get a little more gold and some of the white on there without going too crazy. So I'm going to dry this with my heat tool again, but on low, because I don't want to stop the bleeds completely. I just want to dry it up a bit so I can get some splatters in. Okay, so now that this is dry, I'm going to put some more splatters in. I'm going to start with my white. I think what I'm going to do is take a paper towel and cover just the top portion, because I want the bulk of the splatters to be on the lower portion. I will do some on up top, but the bulk of them I want at the bottom. So I'm just going to water this down and tap. So the bigger the brush you use, the bigger your splatters are going to be. Just keep that in mind. And keep in mind that it's going to go everywhere. So maybe you're doing it, you know, and your hardwood floor isn't covered like mine. You might not be so happy. So I don't want, like I say, I don't want too many up top. Just that ought to do it. And then I'm going to go back in and splatter with some gold. So I'm going to carefully cover the top again. That's got some wet white on it, so I don't want to mess that up. And I'm going to go into that. If you could see my shirt right now, I have white splatter all over my shirt. That's okay. We'll see, see if it comes out in the wash. Who knows? Okay. So I'm calling this done. I'm going to wait until it completely dries on its own and make sure that it's dry thoroughly before I take it off the pad and trim out the bookmarks. So we'll come back and do that later. So now everything's dry, and I'm going to take the little leaf tool that you get when you order the Baohong blocks, and I'm going to run it along the outside glued edges just to separate the page from the block. And then I'm going to flip my pad over, and using the back as my cutting mat, I'm just going to line up the ruler to the edge of the paper and cut out my first bookmark. After I did a couple of these, I decided that that was a little narrow, so I'm actually just eyeballing it and making them a little wider. Now that I look at them, I could probably make them wider still, and probably will make them as wide as this last one that I did here. So here are the finished bookmarks, and I'm quite happy with them. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and that you found it helpful, and maybe that you will try this on your own. And if you do and you're on Instagram, please be sure to share and tag me as always. And if you want to see more beginner-friendly tutorials, please be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell to know when I have new videos out. That's it for today, guys. Take care, and I will see you in the next one.